Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is our college football playoff preview. Say that three times really fast. But what a thrill, guys. Along with me, Logan Landers, our producer engineer. He's going to join us today here on the show. And our founder and co host, Vincent Turner. Guys, I'm going to look at it this way, and I'll start with you, Vincent. You've had Christmas, you've had New Year's. We're going to have MLK Day, but we're also going to have the college football playoff UARY all take place. It's almost like, for me, if you're a football fan, this is everything wrapped together. With the exception of the Super Bowl, this is obviously going to be one of the biggest Mondays of the entire year.
And I'm very enjoyable that it's going to be here in the metro Atlanta area. I think when I'm long and gone, I think people are going to look back on this day and see how blessed it was to have this game on a Monday. College football, where the College Football Hall of Fame is located at. And to me personally, this college football playoff season has been the best in my lifetime. The 12 teams, maybe everybody didn't agree on, but just week after week watching these teams play has been very enjoyable. Back to you, Hawk.
What a grind. And Logan, on top of the joy and the elation, when you think about the business of football and how demanding that it's been on some of the players, they still got to go to class. A few of them, some don't care, but the ones that do want to work on getting their degree. What a arduous 15, 16, 17 weeks.
No, I think you brought up a good point, Harper. That's something that does go, that people don't talk about as much, I think, as we should. And these are, in fact, student athletes, emphasis on students. These are kids in college who should, like I said, they should be going to class, as often as possible and studying for exams and midterms and whatnot. And, it's always nice. We always like to highlight any of the guys that go all academic in college. And like you said, it's the first season with the 12-team college football format. We've whittled it down to the final two. We're finally here. One more game left in this season. And then, boy, it's time for the transfer portal, time for the new NIL deals, time for coaches getting hired, fired. So it seems like football is just never ending. It's always, there's no off season anymore, it feels like, even though we have to put a term on it.
Wait. Pump the brakes. Let's enjoy the game first before we go into all the goofy stuff that has to take place. Can you imagine being on any of these two campuses at the University of Notre Dame or Ohio State, and how many times I would have to imagine at one point, even if you're the long snapper or the backup outside linebacker, whatever, how many kids go by? You almost have to count how few of them would say, "Hey, good luck. Hey, wish you well. Hey, go beat them. Hey, go Irish, beat the Bucks. Go Bucks, beat the Irish." Just imagine that. Logan, I'll start with you. Just the celebrity that you become on that campus, whether you're going to class or skipping it. And those students don't skip any classes. I know it, and so do you folks. We're just having some fun. Go ahead, Logan.
I wonder how much the team stores make in profit during this time, right? Whenever you go to the campus bookstore and whatnot, you can get your T-shirts, get your hats. I'm sure they're flying off the shelf. I don't know if they have enough stock right now to keep it up, but I'm sure for both teams here with Notre Dame and with Ohio State, obviously all the fans, all the alumni, all the students that are currently going to the school. Like I said, this might be the only time they get to go to a national championship during their tenure here at the school. So, school pride is going to be all throughout the campus. And like I said, that these guys, when they go to class, there's at least 10 plus, if not 20 more, just walking through, just saying, hey, good luck, bring it on home, and let's bring a national championship back to either one of these programs. So I'm sure for the players and everyone, it feels great.
Yeah, and that reminds me, which shirt do you get? Do you get the Chick-fil-A Bowl shirt? Do you get the Rose Bowl shirt? Do you get the Citrus Bowl shirt? Do you get the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic shirt? Or do you wait for the Atlanta shirt? Or do you get a little bit of all? Vincent, how much money do you think we're going to see spent there at these bookstores?
Millions. Not thousands, millions. I think when you look at both schools, what's so great about this game is the tradition. Think about it. College football, they last 150 years, 100 years. When you think about college football at the top, you think about a Notre Dame. You think about Ohio State. You think about these kids going to class right now. Everywhere they turn, good luck, man. Hey, man, watching you on TV. And I'm going to tell you a true story. I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it today on 100 Yards Football. Saturday, After the game was over Friday night, I took my lovely wife out, Arlene. We went to the Waffle House. I'm sitting in there in the Waffle House, right? And I said, oh, Lord, it's 4 couples coming there. And guess what attire they had on? The Ohio State Buckeyes. And I said, y'all wrong for that. And you know what they said? Hey, man, Buckeye Nation is going to attack on Saturday here in Atlanta, Georgia. And all I can say is, man, I wish I was them, because they told me they were looking for tickets. They couldn't even find tickets online. And all I had to say, O-H-I-O, Ohio. Back to you, Hall.
You didn't even have to finish it. You just had to say OH, and they finished it for you, I'm sure. I saw a guy the other day, and he's wearing his hat quite proudly.
Yep.
No problem. And I asked him what he thought was going to happen. I go, well, do you give any additional either credit, or is your demand a little higher on Ryan Day because you've got the best team money can buy? And he looked at me and he was ready to go, no. And then, yeah, you're right. We do. So we deserve to be here because that's what we've built. And you take it with a grain of salt and just go, yeah, you can criticize me all you want, but guess who's playing for the national championship? So Logan, earlier in the year, we talked about Ryan Day. There's some folks that were out there that said, I think it was on the air. So Kirk Herbstreit was saying this: would you rather beat Michigan and skip the playoff, or would you rather lose to Michigan and be in the playoff? And there are some people that said, yeah, I'd rather lose or not be in the playoff because I want to beat Michigan. That's how important that is. We've mentioned this before. What a silly decision that would have been. I'm glad that if you're going to take one or the other, you lose to Michigan and play for the national championship, for the business aspect of it, for the players and the recruiting aspect of it, and for the chance to be the first in this new format to be the one to win the championship. I think for all the right reasons, it's great to have Ohio State here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I mean, obviously, if they do end up winning the national championship, I think a lot of people will really just kind of forget in a way about that loss to Michigan until it comes back around next season. And it's once again going to be a hotbed rivalry. But yeah, like I said, the Buckeyes got a lot of momentum coming into this ball game. And I think they'll trade a tough rivalry loss to Michigan in order to hoist that championship trophy. So I think they're feeling that right now.
Well, I would imagine, guys, that the only bookstore item that would be sold at Michigan, well, you didn't beat us, right? If you have a blue shirt with Mays letters, you didn't beat us. You beat everybody else, but you couldn't beat us. So very interesting perspective, at least. Congratulations getting there. And one of the things that I know everybody else has talked about this, but I'm a little slow to the party. Every team that got a bye the first round, that would have been Arizona, Oregon, Boise State, and Georgia. Everyone lost after their week. So was it a benefit to both Ohio State and to Notre Dame to be able to play that first week in a home game, kind of get your feet wet, realize the significance of this, and build your momentum in a way that the second round, or the first round, really, the bye teams from that first round all got trounced early. Vince, let's start with you.
I will agree with you to this point, that they got their feet wet, and they probably had a little more, I want to say the pressure was off of them playing their first game. It was probably more loose. But when you look at overall, I think both of them deserve to be there, because eventually they got there based on their performance and really better coaching and better playing and making the plays at the right time. But I agree with you. It seemed like these two teams were more looser throughout the playoffs when they went to game. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, just interesting how Arizona State looked sloppy in the first half. The second half, they came storming back. Oregon couldn't put it together at all. They just faced a juggernaut that was difficult. Boise State had a hard time getting it going. They could not run against Penn State. And then Georgia obviously struggled with Notre Dame. They only scored 10 points and gave up 23. So interesting, different ways of looking at it. But Logan, let's sum up any of the specific games that you said, this is why I love college football, or this is why I think it needs to be changed, or any early opinion on where the tournament's been so far going into just a couple days before the championship.
Yeah, for me, and I said it last week, and I'm gonna keep that sentiment. So far for me, the game of the top 12 teams, the game of the first ever 12-team college football playoff, for me, it's still going to be that Arizona State and Texas game. Because like you mentioned, Arizona State looked flat in the first half. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, but they came back. They had a good fight, and Texas kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple times, but at the end they got it done, and it was a great game to watch. It was fun, but like I said, we've picked up a lot in terms of the just the intensity of these games, because a lot of the first round matchups, for the majority of them, they were pretty much one-sided, weren't really thrilling, but we've seen each and every single bracket, each team they go through, they get better and better games as the intensity picks up. So for me, that's my go-to game so far. These top 12 teams.
Yeah, and the intensity, the drama, the urgency going into the fourth quarter of each of the prior games in the semifinals with Texas and with Penn State. Great games. Obviously, if you're a Longhorn, you don't like the fact that the sack, scoop, and score by Jack Sawyer. But it was a close game up to then. You had the ball late in the fourth quarter with a chance to win it, or at least tie it, go for two, whatever happens. All right, well, let's look at the game. We're 10 minutes into the show, and it's about time we started talking about the national championship between the University of Notre Dame and the Ohio State University. Let's look at some of the simple things that you'll need to know. Ohio State right now at 13-2, 8-point underdogs here on this game that'll be taking place on Monday on ESPN at 7:30, so that's where you can find it. Guys, Ohio State was 25th in the country passing. They were 66th in running, but they score 37 points a ball game. They're number 8 there, and they've got the number 1 defense in all of college football. They only give up 12 points a game. Tell me why you love Ohio State University in this game against Notre Dame. Off basic stats like that, what impresses you, Vincent?
Talented roster. NFL talent all over the place. Very strong on both sides of the ball. And so far that in these playoffs, the first 2 games, they played at a level that we expect them to play at the beginning of the year. When we started this show, who did we say had the best team and the best roster in the country? It was Ohio State. I didn't know it was like up to here than everybody else. But when you look at their football team, from the offensive line to the defensive line to the playmakers to the explosion, it's no better team in the country. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful task to see them operate in these playoffs. And think about this. How good is Ohio State? 2 of their top offensive linemen, Josh Simmons, who's projected to be a first-round pick, and Seth McLaughlin, who you should know a little bit about, Hawk, because he played at Buford High School, was at Alabama. Both of them have been missing throughout the playoffs. That shows you how talented this Ohio State football team is. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, Notre Dame's got some talent too. They kind of dipped into the portal. We'll talk about them in just a moment. Logan, first thoughts here. Is there any one guy that stands out to you that will be a key to the game in ways that he may not have been keys in the other previous games?
For Ohio State, I think it's going to be, for this upcoming game, it's going to be the running game. It's going to be really the 1A, 1B option in Henderson and Judkins. Can they get it done? Can they get more yardage mostly on the day? We saw against Texas, they had struggled as a team. They only got 81 yards on the ground. So I think that if they're going to want to beat that wall there at Notre Dame, that really talented defense, that they're going to have to get a little bit more creative in the run game, whether it's be more sweeps to the outside, pound it up the middle. That's not up for me to decide. That's up for the OC to figure out. But if you can get the running game going, and with Will Howard, a guy who has exceeded my expectation throughout all these playoff games, really, if he can just keep playing the way he's been doing, I think the Ohio State offense will keep rolling like we've been seeing.
Yeah, I think Will Howard has really made a tremendous difference for his draft stock and his future in the NFL. I think for him to be able to look anyone square in the eye and go, it wasn't easy, but we got it done, and I can do this at another level. Some of the stats that you mentioned that stick out in my mind, you mentioned the running game. Henderson has 10 touchdowns. Quinshon Judkins has 12. The team has 32, so they can rush the ball. Their passing game, of course, with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, those two together are synonymous with what else do you want me to do? between 14 and 10 touchdowns with the two of them. It's just unbelievable. Tremendous pressure is being placed on the secondary for the Irish, the linebackers, and of course their corners and safeties. I'm not sure if you're going to play a zone or man-to-man, how you're going to blitz. I'm sure Notre Dame on the defensive side is struggling mightily to figure out how are we going to stop. Not only are they bigger than anybody we faced all year, but they're as talented, if not more, at every single position. So, Vincent, how do you stop the Buckeyes offensively?
When you look, let's go back to the blueprint, starting with the Georgia game. What did Notre Dame defensive line do? They shut down Georgia's running game. I believe they held them to like 64 yards rushing. Then Penn State comes back and gets 201 yards on them. But the one thing I noticed about Notre Dame defense in that game, they didn't really give up the big explosive play. So to me, it's going to be a line of scrimmage game. Notre Dame is probably not going to change anything different. Their objectives is to shut down the running game first. That's just my opinion. And Notre Dame, if you look at them defensively throughout these playoffs, they are a good tackling team. That's what Marcus Freeman really is expressed with their defense. But to me, that's Notre Dame's objective. Let's keep the running game under wraps. And then we're going to play on the back nine. How we going to match up? Leonard Moore, Jordan Clark, Ryan Clark's baby, Rod Hurd III, Xavier Watts, and Christian Gray are going to be the keys to the game. Because as you just said, Hawk, how are they going to stop down that potent wide receiver game? And Will Howard, even though he's played well, he kind of struggled against Texas a little bit. But when you look at Notre Dame, Christian Gray, the corner for Notre Dame, made that an excellent pick to win the game. But I really want to see, is Marcus Freeman going to have confidence in them guys playing man-to-man? I don't see Notre Dame changing that, because that's how Notre Dame has played, very aggressive, blitzing and leading their corners on the island. And think about this, going back to the Georgia game. Georgia had some times to make plays in that game. Dylan Bell dropped a big-time pass. Adrian Smith had a big-time reception. To me, the game is going to come down for Notre Dame's defense. It's the young man on the back nine. It's money to be made, though. Because think about it. If you go up against Jeremiah Smith and you get him in man-to-man coverage, Mr. Christian Gray, you're going to make some money. I don't think Notre Dame is going to play a bracket 3 players on Jeremiah Smith. That's not who they are. But the one thing, as I give it back to you, Mr. LaBelle, when I look at defenses, especially in the secondary and your linebacker position, I always look at the tackling aspect. Notre Dame can tackle real well. They don't miss a lot of tackles. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, interesting perspective in terms of the secondary. I think that's critical. You look at the pressure that they put on Georgia. That was pretty extensive as well. Riley Mills, number 99, he's got 7.5 sacks. Donovan Hennish, number 41, he has 4.5 sacks. They have 38 as a group. 19 interceptions, though. There's only 10 on Ohio State side defensively, and they have 13 fumble recoveries. So you add the two up, they're getting almost 2 turnovers a ball game. At least they're pretty dang close to that. And that, to me, is a very interesting defensive stat that sticks out and could be a real problem. They're going to knock the ball out. They're going to put pressure on you, their linebackers especially. I think Ohio State does have a little bit to worry about. I think they're bigger. I think they may be faster than they've ever been, or at least as fast as they need to be. But they got to have time. And if you don't give Will Howard time to throw, it could be a disastrous afternoon or early evening for the Buckeyes. But they've got the big guys up front. So, Logan, do me a favor and tell me where I'm wrong in terms of Ohio State being able to protect their quarterback, keep their run game strong, and be able to get the ball down the field.
Well, for me, Harper, the one takeaway that I had in that Texas win where they won 28-14, like you said, the running game wasn't as efficient as we had seen. Will Howard, I mean, he had good numbers, right? 289 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. But to me, where the Buckeyes are really going to have to just fix some of their flaws they had, well, that was in the penalty game. They had 9 penalties. A lot of them were either holdings or false starts. They had 9 penalties for 75 yards in a crucial game. I mean, if you didn't call half of those, they could have won by a couple more scores potentially. But They just kept making those mistakes, right? Those mental mistakes of jumping too early, of just basically just being too antsy, being too excited, and just really wanting to get out there. You can't have that in the national championship game. It's the small things that help win you championships. And by cutting down on the penalties, you can't have 9 and beat a team like Notre Dame. They got away with it with Texas, but like you said, this Notre Dame, the offense and defense specifically, is pretty much locked down. And the offensive side, you have to find a way to get Jeremiah Smith some more touches. He was held to just 1 catch last week. So that was a guy who we were all talking about, right, going into that game against Texas and saying, watch out for him. No one's been able to contain him yet. And that's exactly what Texas did. They found a blueprint, and they were able to limit him to if you had to look down the box score and just see where he was. That's the impact he didn't have on that game. So if you're Ohio State, you might have to get a little bit more creative to get Smith involved because, like you said, that is their A1 receiver right there. They have a lot of great talents, but from what we've seen him do, if you can get him to break loose in Jeremiah Smith, then it could be a long day for Notre Dame. So I think that if you're Ohio State, you just got to keep doing what you've been doing, but just relax a little bit, take a deep breath, don't rush it, and find a way to get your star receiver a little bit more touches in the game.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty interesting shutdown, or at least an attempt. And Ohio State's so talented that if you do take away a receiver, well, we're going to get it to one of the others, or we're going to get the tight end involved, or I'm going to dump it off to my backs. So everything seemed to work. And Texas, whose defense is absolutely outstanding, they got studs all over the place. They did as good as they possibly could. Give them all kinds of credit, Vincent, because I think Texas did everything they were asked to do in terms of a game plan. 21 points to one of the best teams in the nation going into that late in that fourth quarter. I'm certainly not disappointed with them. And it was a defensive turnover and score by Jack Sawyer that really blew that game open and ended Texas's every chance that they possibly could have had. So my question to you, Vincent, is what does Ohio State, if anything, what do they need to do differently against the Irish in preparing for that team as opposed to what they did against Texas?
Play their game offensively. Even though Jeremiah Smith only had 1 catch for 3 yards, Connell Tate stepped up. They went to the screen game. Trayvon Henderson, which I think had the most important play of the game when he went 76 yards for a touchdown for halftime. I thought that play there won them the game. I don't think you change anything. I think you just adjust what Notre Dame is going to do. Texas decided to take Jeremiah Smith out. Next people step up. Mr. E.E. Omeka, he stepped up. They went to him early. The running game got off a little bit for Ohio State. My only question is, Will Howard has to continuously play at a high level. He had some stalls in that game that he struggled. Now, that was like you said, Harp. Let's give Texas credit. Texas came out shaky, but they started playing very well on the defensive line, and they started controlling the line of scrimmage. And they played well enough defensively to win that football game. That game was close. It took a fumble recovery by Mr. Jack Sawyer at the end of the game that ended for Texas. But I don't have no problems. Texas played very well defensively, and they played very well on the line of scrimmage. And let me give credit to their linebackers, Anthony Hill and Mr. Simmons. I think the freshman really came real strong. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, speaking of linebackers, and let's look a little bit at Ohio State from the defensive side. 51 sacks this year. Their ability to put pressure on anybody that they play against, especially in the playoff, has been outstanding in my opinion. They've got guys all over the place that are rushing. They're taking turns at their greatness. I go on this one. I'm going to give you everything I have. I take 2 off and I go back in the flats and cover a back or a tight end, and then I'm going to rush a little bit later. Give you an example. Going into this game, Cody Simon, the linebacker, 7 sacks going into this season. JT, I'm going to blow his last name. Tui Molo'au is 11. He's got 11 and a half sacks. Jack Sawyer has 9 throughout the year. All these guys can bring it. And then when you've got coverage like Caleb Downs there as a safety, gosh, it's like having 12 guys out on the field. So defensively, what I think the Buckeyes almost can do from a philosophical standpoint, Logan, is to just say, whatever you bring, we got something for it. We've got speed. We've got size. You can't run up the middle against us. We don't give up touchdowns in the red zone, especially if you're going to try to run against us. And our corners and our safeties are as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the mentality that you see with this team, right? You mentioned that coming into this bowl game, they are 13-2. You know, they have lost twice this year, but they've bounced back from those losses. They've looked better. They've refocused. And like you said, it seems like at this time, they're just kind of on a warpath right now. And they say it doesn't matter if you get a top 5 pick, if he's on the line, if you get me a quarterback who can throw for thousands of yards and 20 plus 30 touchdowns, it don't matter who you go up against. If it's a dominant running force, then we're going to take it. We're going to take your hit, but we're going to hit you back even harder. And that's what this Ohio State team has done on both offense and defense, and that's why they've looked so impressive against all these teams so far. I mean, when they got the blowout wins over Oregon and Tennessee, no one thought that they'd win by that much. When they had a tougher game, a tight game against Texas, when they came on strong, we saw in the key moments, the Buckeyes were calm, cool, and collected, and they made those big plays. And right now, it seems like they just have all their eyes set on getting to a national championship and bringing it back there to Ohio State.
Well, we could go on and on and on and on about the Buckeyes. They got to play. And if they do, it appears on paper that at every position, they're good, if not great. And they've got an answer for just about everything. I'm sure their coach has been burning the candle down at the midnight hour to try to figure out, okay, we know what Notre Dame's going to do. They're going to run, and then they're going to run some more. And then if they have to, they might pass, but they're going to want to run some more. So that's what the Irish do. Going into this game, Notre Dame was 102nd in the nation in terms of their passing offense efficiency. Under 200 yards a game, they average 194. But in terms of rushing, they're number 14. They're at 210, and that includes the Air Force and Army and Navy and some of the other teams that run that have better stats. But guess what? They're the one playing for the national championship. It are the Irish, not the others. So their ability to combine the two. They score a heck of a lot of points. They're 6th in the country with 38 points a game. And we know that Ohio State's defense is ranked number 1 in terms of scoring defense. Well, guess who's number 2? That's the Irish. A little over 14 points a game. So defense wins championships, and Notre Dame has been bringing it defensively. You see all these outside linebackers. They created all kinds of havoc. You had to trade your tackles from one side to the other, did the University of Georgia against them. No time for your quarterback to be able to throw. I think they're going to be able to put that kind of pressure on Ohio State. I think so. I'm hoping that they do so if they're going to stand any chance at all. They got to get pressure on the quarterback when they're going to pass and get the ball out early. Vincent, where am I wrong?
You 100% correct, because Notre Dame is not going to change anything. They've been very aggressive. I want to say this. Kudos to Al Golden. They played very aggressive in the first game against Indiana, came back against Georgia. Penn State, we know Penn State was going to move the ball on them, but they made plays in that game. And as I keep saying on this show today, they're a very good tackling team. We might talk about the stars over there for Ohio State, but Jack Kaiser, 6-year player, has played pretty well in these playoffs. Xavier Watts has proven to y'all need to be talking about Caleb Downs. Y'all need to be talking about me. I might be the best safety in the country. And they will. I like good defensive teams that tackle. Even though Ohio State's 8-point favorite, even though they got explosive offense, Notre Dame is not going to change anything. And Marcus Freeman, I want to give you credit when I look in the camera. Man, I thought you might lose it when y'all lost to Northern Illinois at the early year. I want to say I'm proud of you, how you kept that winning streak. And in the playoffs, if you look at the interviews when they go to the sidelines and after the games, he's very confident in his team, man. I remember when they interviewed him when they went into halftime against Penn State, he said, we just got to run the ball better, but we got to continuously tackle better. So if you think Notre Dame is going to change anything, they're going to be very aggressive. They're going to shut down the running game, in my opinion, and they're going to have enough trust in the back seven back there. And think about how good Notre Dame defense has played this year. They don't even have their best player, Benjamin Morrison. That's a top 10 pick. That's coaching. Even though I'm going with Ohio State, I'm going to have to agree a little bit with Hop. I'm loving Notre Dame, and I've never been a Notre Dame fan because they won so much back in the day. Back to you, Hop.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. I think the coaches on the sideline have done two things. They put a game plan together. Yes. They've got a systematic way of how we're going to train for the week and how we're going to prepare for our upcoming opponent, that it gets the guys motivated. I think they're driven too. They're driven. They're focused. And the players are buying into it because it's working. Hey, if we just stop this guy, guess what? They're going to have to punt. And it works, and you force a punt. Okay, if we give up a touchdown here, they've got answers for just about everything, to where the players, you can see the enthusiasm. Even the guys that aren't playing a whole heck of a lot, they're in tune, and they're going, yeah, this is amazing. That's one of the things on the sideline that I noticed against Georgia. That they weren't sure if it was going to work. But once it started to, Indiana was a different competitor. Georgia, if you're a Notre Dame fan, especially having played them in a home and home a couple years previously, they knew how serious it was, and it started working. And that manipulated its way into the Penn State game. So Logan, I'm going to say just right now, I'm sorry for talking so long before I get back to you. Vincent's point about the coaching, and I'm not saying Ohio State doesn't have great coaches. I'm just saying Notre Dame, to me, is very impressive in the way that they're reacting to what they've been taught to do for that upcoming week and the results that they're getting.
Yeah, and to me, Notre Dame has just been, like you said, just the word, if I could describe them, is just disciplined. I mean, you don't see them after the call is over. You don't see them chirping on the sideline or throwing punches or anything crazy like that, right? They get their work done in between the whistle in the lines there. And to me, what I thought was the big factor in the win against Penn State, just looking a little bit deeper that game, was the third down efficiency. Notre Dame went 11 of 17 on third down, and they held Penn State to just 3 of 11. Like you said, if you look at the box score, yes, of course, Penn State had their dynamic duo in just running for 200 plus yards. But yeah, they took a hit, but they knew at the end that, look, we know these guys are going to put some work on. Anyone could have said that, but like you said, that's good coaching. For saying, all right, look, if we gave up a 20, 30-yard rush here, if they got a score on us, okay, it's no big deal. We'll march down the field and we'll get our score back. We'll make it even. We'll chip away. We'll kick a field goal, but we will stay competitive, and that's what this team has done seemingly all year. We talked about before in Notre Dame, their defense is so impressive that we talk about their offense. They're not putting up eye-popping numbers throughout the postseason. Even they're not winning 41 to 15 or anything along those lines. They're getting by though, and that's a testament to a well-coached team. And back to my original point, that's just discipline. And gotta show credit to Riley Leonard, a guy who is kind of doing a whole lot of really good work on offense. Obviously, as your main guy behind the center there as your quarterback, but he's getting it done with his legs. He's keeping his guys under composure and ready to go, and you see it's working. I said weeks ago I didn't think that they would beat Georgia, but here they go. They beat Georgia, they beat Penn State, and here they are back in the national championship, and they've impressed me. They've done a really good job, and like Vincent said, to credit to Marcus Freeman and the rest of his staff over there for keeping these guys in line and for playing to their strengths, addressing their weaknesses week by week, and just getting better and better, and that's why they're in the position they're in here.
Yeah, the discipline that you mentioned is what a great word, because I remember vividly on numerous occasions all throughout the playoff when a receiver gets the ball, he gets up and he hands the ball to the official, and he almost leads the official back to the line of scrimmage to kind of speed the game up. Little things like that they do. When they get up, they could talk trash. Notre Dame has been known for doing that in the past. They don't, at least not right now. They're not doing it. So that 15-yard penalty that Ohio State got early in the ballgame against Texas, they may get a couple of those, because I'm sure both sides are going to be chirping. But in between the whistles, Notre Dame shuts it down, focuses on that play, and then again, you make a catch, you do whatever, and you hand the ball to the official. Very interesting that you noticed that as well. That's one of the things that has stuck out in my mind about, hey, this team is pretty serious about how they've learned to play the game their way. Vincent, Logan just brought up Riley Leonard and the quarterback play. When I watch him throw, I sometimes I want to cringe. I almost want to go Tim Tebow, but he's a great college quarterback because he can run and he can get the ball to his receivers. He's not the most gifted you're ever going to see in terms of his passing, but guess what? He's playing for the national championship and I'm not. So I'm not there to criticize. I'm just saying that's what I observe. And by the way, Tim played for a team that had multiple national championships too. So back off, everybody. He's one of the great college quarterbacks of all time. College quarterbacks. And that's where Riley Leonard fits in. Just under 1,000 yards in terms of his rushing, 2,600 passing, not that big a deal. 66% though, that's a little bit higher than what I thought it would be. I thought he'd be about 62, 61, maybe somewhere in that plane. 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, only been sacked 18 times. The game, in my opinion, rests more on him than on Will Howard, at least from my perspective about how is Notre Dame going to win this game. What does he need to do? Because his ability to throw to some guys that, let's be honest, if I'm an Ohio State cornerback or a safety, I'm looking at my roster and going, I practice harder against the better players just on my team, let alone who these Notre Dame guys are. I'm not very impressed with them. Leading receiver for the Irish has, 39 receptions? That's their tight end. Jaden Greenhouse has 36, and my guy has 70, 71, 75. So in terms of statistics, I give the advantage well in advance to Ohio State. But what does Riley Leonard need to do aside from just stay calm, play your best game that you can, do the best with what's given to you? My stats will speak for themselves, but my ability to run and turn a sack into a 5-yard gain, that to me is what the difference is going to be.
Outstanding points, Hawk. I agree with you 100%. If Notre Dame going to win this game, it's going to be on with the young man from Fairhope, Alabama, down there in the Mobile area where Ken the Snake Stabler is from, Hank Aaron. So this young man comes out of there and winning is at the top of the list. Now, let me ask you something. He might not look good passing. He might make you cringe. But what we doing right now, he's 3-0, and he's going to be in Atlanta on Monday night. He can hurt you with his legs. And let's go back to the Penn State game. He threw a critical pick in that football game that could have changed the game. But on the next possession, he did find a young man from Austin, Texas. What's his name? You just said his name, Jaden Greenhouse.
Yep, Greenhouse, yep.
And Penn State got a NFL secondary. And ended up winning that game 27-24. He made plays in the Georgia game not passing. He only passed for 98 yards, but what did he have on the ground? 80 yards. He makes plays in the course of the game that wins you the game. Marcus Freeman already said, I got the best quarterback left. The facts are he's 3-0. The facts are he's a big guy that can hurt you. The facts are he was at Duke, winning at Duke. I like Notre Dame chances because I won't want to face a quarterback like that that's big, 6'4", 240. He can hurt you both ways. And don't worry about Notre Dame's receiving core. The lacrosse player, what's his name, Jordan Faison, he's very hard to cover. And remember this, Notre Dame likes to run the ball. Jeremiah Love, I was checking my information on Twitter. They say he's the healthiest he's ever been in the playoffs. If I'm Ohio State, granted I had 16 sacks in 3 games, granted I'm only allowed 62 yards rushing, I'm going to sleep worrying about Riley Leonard. Because one thing about Notre Dame, look what they do from an offensive standpoint. They're going to grind you. 3 yards here, 4 yards there. Mitchell, what's the kid's name? Mitchell Evans, one of the best tight ends in the country. Notre Dame is always going to be in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. And like Logan said, they might have struggled on 3rd down. I mean, what was the stat you gave, Logan? They was 11-17 against Penn State.
3rd down,
Yep, 3rd down, yep.
Think about that. That's a high percentage. Back to you, Harp. If I'm Ohio State, he's my number one priority because Riley Leonard can hurt you in different ways in that football game. Granted, he made that critical turnover that almost cost him a game against Penn State. But what did he do on the next series? 57 yards to the man from Austin, Jaden Greenhouse. Back to you, Harp.
Yeah, well, you mentioned getting hurt. If Riley Leonard goes down, which he did in the Penn State game, he hit the back of his head. He came out. He had concussion protocol. He had to skip a series. Thank goodness that the halftimes run a little bit longer. Gets his wits back about him. But Steve Angeli did a pretty good job in replacing him. I was very impressed with that.
He did.
I don't know if Will Howard goes down, and I don't want anyone to get hurt, but what happens if, right, who's the next man up for Ohio State? Is it Devin Brown? Julian Sayin? Who's going to be their guy? And does he have the ability to run this offense? He probably doesn't get any reps. So that's just another thing to throw into the mix. But we were talking about Notre Dame's offense. Logan, finish up. Anything that we missed?
No, I mean, you brought up a great point there, Harper, with the fact that if it wasn't for, the heroics of Steve Angeli, ending that second quarter there, going into halftime, if they had got that drive, they would have been down 10-0. But we saw he went 6 of 7 throughout his drive. He's able to get enough range to get into a field goal, and it kept him within a one-possession game, so two-possession game going into halftime. So that was probably, I think, a big moment there, obviously. Another one, too, that was a big moment in the game was when they were tied. I believe it was right on the goal line, and it was 1st and goal, tied 10-10. It was early in the fourth quarter, and they were maybe on the 4 or 5 yard line, and they gave the ball off to Jeremiah Love. And God, he wrestled. It felt like half the team was on his back, but he willed his way in there. He was determined to get into the end zone, and that was a huge momentum shift there. So I think that, like you said, that this is just a gutsy team. They know that. They've heard everyone say, Ohio State, they've got all these 5-star guys. All these guys are going to go, first round, second round in the NFL draft here. But for right now, this is a very good team. Like Vincent said, Jaden Greathouse had a great performance as well in offense. So, I mean, I think that, that they're really starting to show, we might not blow teams out. We're not going to put up super, super impressive numbers, but we get the work done. And that's what's impressed me about this offense there with the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, 5 different guys from Penn State had a chance to get Jordan Love down. 5. So the will, the want to, whatever you want to call it, folks, they certainly had it. There's something about those echoes, something about when the band strikes up. That's another thing. Both bands are absolutely fantastic. I probably will turn the sound. Well, I can't turn the sound off. I've got to hear I want to hear the bands play. However, I can't stand. I have to admit, I can't stand on third down when the band plays until they break the huddle. They just play one note. They go, stop it. I can't stand that. But Jaden Fielding, one final thing, guys. Let's talk a little bit about special teams. Jaden Fielding, 69 of 69 in terms of his extra points. Yes, he's the kicker for Ohio State. He might have something to do with this. 11 out of 15, so 73% for him in terms of his field goal percentage. And then if you look on the other side, Notre Dame, Mitch Jeter ends up getting a game winner. How cool for him. He was 65% going into that. He was, he was 12 for 19, but now he's 13 for 20 on the air, and he's kicked all through. So where do special teams fit into this? Logan, we'll start with you. Block a punt, a big kickoff return. Notre Dame's got a guy that can run the ball back. Ask Georgia. There might be a big special teams play here or there.
Yeah, special teams obviously play big factors in these games. And like you mentioned, for Mitch Jeter, getting the walk-off field goal with just, a handful of ticks left on the clock, that's going to build your confidence, right? You're going to feel like you're walking high coming to this national championship game, and rightfully so. A guy who at times has struggled, right? You mentioned his percentages, but you can kind of throw it out the window for the moment because right now he feels like he can't miss anything from regardless of where it's from. But yeah, special teams definitely can play a big factor. I mean, you could see a long snapper just throw it way too high and it runs back to the end zone. You could see.
Don't wish that on anybody, Logan. I know what that feels like. So don't.
No, I'm just saying, Harper. There's a million possibilities, right? But just play your game. Take a deep breath before your action, and just know, just get it done. But yeah, special teams it's a big factor in these games, no doubt.
Go ball. Go do it. Do what you do. Vincent, you mentioned the tackling earlier. I think tackling on special teams, unnoticed by many, it'll be something I know you'll be looking for it. I certainly will, in terms of, one team versus another. Do they have a chance to break the game open with a big kick return or a punt return or a kid that, look what happened with Texas. If you missed a field goal and then you doink one, you're not even dressing the following week. So what is your expectation here in this national championship game?
In games like this, your special teams got to be A+. Field position plays a big part in this game. Points are going to be very, very tight. Notre Dame is going to need every point in the game. That's why I'm going to ride with their special teams. Because Mr. Jeter, if I had to say who's a better kicker, I would ride with Notre Dame because as you mentioned, they had a kickoff return against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And then their field goal kicker, as Logan said, kicked the winning field goal. But it's going to be very important. No missed tackles, field position. Your punters got to be on point. And, of course, field goal kickers. Very simple.
Are we missing anything? I think we've got offense, defense on both sides. We talked about special teams. We've talked about the coaching and the importance of that. All right, Logan. Who do you want, and tell me why? Who do you think is going to win this ball game, and tell me why?
For me, I'm going to go with Vincent mentioned. It's going to be a low-scoring game, I think. For me, I'm going to ride with the Ohio State Buckeyes getting to win this one. I'll go with the final score of 24-17, a one-score ball game. For me, the big factor that I think will be the winning, the way that Ohio State will win. I like the way that Will Howard has performed throughout these playoffs. I think that Jeremiah Smith will kind of break loose after being shut down last week. And I think that the Buckeyes offense, and pairing with their great defense, I think their offense is better than Notre Dame's. But I think the Irish are going to put up a really good fight. And but I think the Buckeyes are going to roll in this one. And Ryan Day will hopefully get all those critics out of his face.
Yeah, he'll be forever linked to some of the greats for obvious reasons. And his coaching career will change forevermore because of that. Vincent, I know you had to take care of your dog, your cat, your the birds, everything out there. And we're glad you're back. Thank you much. My question to Logan was, tell me who you think's going to win it all. We've talked about offense, defense, special teams, coaching, everything. Who's going to win it and why?
I'm going with Ohio State because they got the more talented roster. But I'm going to tell you this. If Notre Dame keeps their game close throughout, I say the first half, and we go into the fourth quarter, it's a one-score game, Notre Dame has got a great chance of winning. I just feel like Ohio State has got to get off to a good start. I'm talking about like they did against Tennessee or Oregon. But if they get off a start against Texas, well, they have some series. They go 3-and-out. Notre Dame is still playing close to the vest. Notre Dame is playing field position. It comes a grand, ugly game. It's a 10-3 game, 7-3 game. Notre Dame is going to have an excellent chance to win this football game. But if Ohio State comes out in that first quarter and get up like they did against Tennessee, 21-0, then we're going to be singing the great songs, O-H-I-O, Ohio. But looking at this game here, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a classic. And I think it's going to come down maybe when we go into the fourth quarter, big-time players step up. It's going to come down between Will Howard and Riley Leonard. I'm going in Ohio State in a close one. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, you mentioned Tennessee and Oregon. I think both of the players, coaches, and fans in the games earlier in the playoff had everybody looking like this.
Yes.
I call it the Brook Trout rule. Look, you don't have eyelashes. You can't blink. You just look at what the heck happened. I think Texas experienced that in the fourth quarter. You say after the ball game to your teammate, you go, was that a truck that hit us? Are we okay? Are we going to survive this? No, it wasn't a truck. It was the Ohio State Buckeyes. And I can see Notre Dame with that same look on their face. I can see it. But I don't think it's going to happen. I can imagine that it will. And Riley Leonard will be looking around after a pick, and what the heck was that? He wasn't supposed to be there, and just looking around and not saying anything. The offensive linemen looking around with their thumbs out. It's the international symbol I call for, I don't know what's going on here, right? When you stick your thumbs out and you shrug. I think Notre Dame is going to play better than that. I can see Ohio State dominating. Who couldn't? They're an 8.5-point favorite. But for some reason, Notre Dame is there for a purpose, and let's find out what they can do. You mentioned a close game, late in the fourth quarter, Notre Dame gets the ball, they drive down the field, they punch it in for a go-ahead, and go Irish. That's what I'm thinking could happen as well. So we don't know. We're just speculating, but either way, it's going to be fantastic. Final thoughts from you, Logan?
For me, it's going to be a great game on Monday night in Atlanta. If you have to go somewhere in the city, go early because it is going to be a madhouse down there at Mercedes-Benz. But I think it's going to be a good game. And and also post-game, what flavor or what color the Gatorade's going to be they dump on the coach. That's always a fun one to see. If it's going to be Ohio State, I think you team colors, keep it red, right? But I mean, you could go. I don't think is there a green Gatorade you can go for the Irish if they win that one. I don't know if they have that. So
they've got the light blue. What is it? Arctic blue, whatever.
Yeah, the Arctic blue. So you might go maybe the lemon lime or something. Just to keep the team colors. But I mean, I'm excited. It's going to be a great game and a great way to cap off the end of this college football season.
Vincent, if you come across 4 or 6 tickets, I know you've got some people that could use them, but you tell me why this is going to be a great ball game.
First, really college football playoff championship game in the city of Atlanta. Me being here, I hope that I'm supposed to be working in that area on Saturday, and downtown is going to be ridiculous. And seeing all those Buckeye fans coming up from Columbus and the Notre Dame fans from South Bend, that's going to be special. And I think what makes it so special for me is that I brought it up early in the show. 2 programs, this is what college football is about. Are we going all the way back to the 66 Irish? Rocky Bleier, Alan Page, Adrian Parseghian, Joe Theismann, Tim Brown, and then the Super 1968 Ohio State Buckeyes. Tatum, Kern, Steelwagon, as you say, Hop, the black shoes of Woody Hayes. Man, you could not be more blessed and honored if you still living in these 2 schools going to play on Monday night. I don't know what you're doing out there if you're watching this show today, but make sure you be in front of the TV and watching on ESPN because it's going to be a classic. And all I got to say, Ohio is going to be in Atlanta. They're coming in today. Dun, 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 dun. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, one of the great fight songs, both schools can say it. Both schools can say we've got the best fight song in all of football. And whether it be Script Ohio at the beginning or the Irish medley that they played before they kick the extra point, and then they do the fight song afterwards. What a joy it'll be to watch this game. So get all of your honeydew stuff out of the way, guys. Make sure that you get all the tasks done on Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday, even though we know there's NFL action, so that you can watch the presidential inauguration on Monday afternoon at high noon. It goes into effect, but at 7:30, there's something else that's really important to taking place too. The first national championship of its kind with the playoff and the grid that they've got now, and everything is changing. So we hope you enjoy it. So for Vincent Turner, our founder, our host, for Logan Landers, our producer and engineer, I'm Harper LaBelle saying thank you guys for tuning in to 100 Yards of Football. This is our college football playoff preview. Thank you for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.